Later that night, Lauren sat on the couch, her gaze fixed on Ethan and Jacob as they slept soundly in their bassinet. David entered quietly and settled beside her, the weight of the day evident in his demeanor. For a time, neither spoke, the silence filled only with the soft, rhythmic breaths of the twins. At last, Lauren broke the quiet, her voice barely above a whisper. "They just trust that I'll keep them safe," she said, the weight of her words hanging in the air. "You will," David assured her, his tone steady and kind. "You already are." Lauren turned to him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I'm scared, David," she admitted, her voice cracking. "Every time I think about what could have happened today, I feel like I'm failing them." "You're not failing," David said, his steady gaze meeting hers. "You're doing everything you can, and you're not alone in this. We're here for you, for them." Something in his calm, resolute tone eased the knot of tension in Lauren's chest. She nodded, a faint smile breaking through her exhaustion. "Thank you." David didn't respond with words, but the look in his eyes conveyed everything she needed to hear. As the house settled into an uneasy quiet, Nathan retreated to his room, the weight of his mission pressing down on him. He opened the files he had retrieved, and his stomach churned as he scanned the list of influential names tied to the trafficking operation in Portland: politicians, corporate executives, even members of law enforcement. He clenched his fists, his jaw tightening in anger. The corruption ran deeper than he had anticipated, and the adversaries they faced were more formidable than he had feared. Closing the laptop, Nathan leaned back, his resolve sharpening like a blade. They weren't just up against a clandestine network, they were battling the very foundations of the city itself. The storm outside mirrored the tension brewing within David's mansion. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled through the surrounding trees. Nathan paced in the study, his voice taut as he relayed his findings to David, Rachel, and Lauren. "They're more entrenched than we thought," Nathan said, his tone heavy with frustration. "The names on this list include politicians, corporate leaders, even law enforcement. Their reach is everywhere." Rachel frowned, her arms crossing as her eyes narrowed. "With that kind of support, it's no wonder they're this bold. They think they're untouchable." Lauren sat on the couch, cradling Jacob in her arms, her face pale with worry. "What do we do now?" she asked softly. "How do we stop something this massive?" David leaned against the desk, his expression dark and resolute. "We stay vigilant, we gather the evidence we need and bring it to the right people. But first we protect this house and everyone in it." Suddenly a low hum grew louder, like engines closing in. Nathan stiffened, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. "That's not good," he muttered under his breath. Rachel darted to the window, pulling the curtains aside. Her expression hardened instantly. "Vehicles, 3 of them. They've found us?" The mansion erupted into chaos as David's security team sprang into action. The attackers, armed and methodical, surrounded the property, their intentions unmistakable. Nathan took command, directing the security team with precision, while David secured Lauren and the twins in a safe room. But Lauren refused to stay hidden. "I'm not leaving them," she said fiercely, clutching Ethan and Jacob close to her chest. "Lauren, please," David urged, his voice strained but pleading. "We need you safe." Her eyes burned with determination. "They are my children, David. I'm not running while they're in danger." David hesitated, his jaw clenching tightly. Finally, he nodded, acknowledging her resolve. "Then we fight." The first breach came through the back door. Nathan and the security team met the intruders head-on, the sharp cracks of gunfire echoing through the mansion's halls. Rachel, armed with a pistol, moved with practiced efficiency, covering Nathan's flank. "Remind me to ask where you learned that," Nathan said, ducking behind the kitchen island as bullets ricocheted around them. Rachel smirked, her tone dry despite the chaos. "You're not the only one with secrets, Nathan." Meanwhile, the chaos reached Lauren. One of the attackers slipped past the defenses and found his way into the living room, where she was hiding with the twins. He towered over her, his presence radiating menace. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," he said, stepping closer. Lauren's heart pounded, but fear quickly gave way to fury. She grabbed the nearest lamp, her grip steady despite the tremor in her voice. "Stay away from my children," she said, her words trembling yet resolute. The man lunged, but Lauren swung the lamp with all her might. The heavy base connected with his head, and he staggered, giving her just enough time to scoop up the twins and retreat to a safer room. Meanwhile, David was relentless in his defense of the mansion. He moved with precision and purpose, his calm exterior masking the fire of determination within. When another attacker attempted to breach the safe room where Lauren had taken refuge, David intercepted him. His movements were swift, his blows unyielding. "You picked the wrong house," David growled, landing a decisive punch to the intruder's jaw. With the attacker subdued, David secured the door and turned to Lauren, his eyes filled with concern. "Are you all right?" he asked urgently. Lauren nodded, though her breath came in shallow, shaky gasps. "We're fine," she managed, her voice quivering. David placed a steady hand on her shoulder, his gaze unwavering. "We'll get through this," he said firmly. "I promise." The attackers retreated hastily as the piercing sound of sirens filled the air. Police vehicles pulled up to David's mansion, their lights flashing through the rain-soaked night. Officers, alerted by one of David's security guards, swiftly surrounded the remaining intruders, apprehending them before they could escape. The grounds were soon secured, a fragile calm settling over the property. In the aftermath, Rachel approached an officer, her expression resolute. She extended the flash drive Nathan had risked everything to retrieve. "This has everything you need to dismantle their operation," she said, her tone unwavering. "Make sure it's handled by the right people." The officer accepted the drive, his face grim with understanding. "We'll see to it." Inside the mansion, the atmosphere was quieter but heavy with the residue of fear and adrenaline. Lauren sat on the couch, both twins nestled securely in her arms. Nathan entered the room, his shirt streaked with dirt and damp from the chaos. He crouched down in front of her, his eyes scanning hers with concern. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice tinged with guilt. Lauren nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I was terrified, Nathan, but I wouldn't take my boys." "You didn't," Nathan replied, his tone steady. "You were remarkable." A faint, weary smile crossed Lauren's face as she reached out, gripping his hand tightly. "We all were." As the police processed the scene, Rachel and Nathan stood on the porch, watching as the rain tapered into a soft drizzle. Rachel cast him a sidelong glance, her expression thoughtful yet teasing. "You're not a bad man, Nathan," she said quietly, a trace of warmth in her voice, "even if you do have a knack for reckless decisions." Nathan chuckled, the tension in his shoulders easing as he leaned against the railing. "And you're not too terrible yourself, Rachel, for a lawyer." Rachel smirked, nudging him lightly with her elbow. "I'll take that as a compliment." Meanwhile, inside the mansion, David found Lauren sitting in the nursery. The soft glow of a nightlight illuminated her as she watched Ethan and Jacob sleep peacefully in their crib. David stepped into the room, his presence a quiet but steady reassurance. "They're safe now," he said in a low, comforting voice. Lauren turned to him, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. "Because of you. Because of all of you." David crouched beside her, his hand brushing hers gently. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, Lauren. You didn't need us. You just needed to trust yourself." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Lauren felt the oppressive weight on her chest begin to lift. She nodded, leaning her head against David's shoulder as the sound of the twins' soft, rhythmic breathing filled the room. In that moment, peace felt possible. The weeks after the attack were marked by a mix of resolution and introspection. The flash drive Nathan had risked everything to retrieve became the linchpin of a far-reaching investigation. The exposure of the trafficking ring sent shockwaves across Portland, toppling influential figures from their seats of power. Arrests were swift and public outrage was deafening, a testament to the magnitude of the crimes uncovered. In David's study, Nathan and Rachel sat across from one another, poring over the latest updates from law enforcement. Nathan leaned back in his chair, the lines of worry on his face easing for the first time in weeks. A rare flicker of calm softened his usual intensity. "They got them," Rachel said, her eyes scanning the screen of her laptop. "The evidence was rock solid. This operation is done." Nathan exhaled, a deep, measured breath that seemed to lift a weight off his chest. "It's not just about shutting them down," he said, his tone thoughtful. "It's about making sure no one ever has to face this again." Rachel tilted her head, her sharp eyes unexpectedly warm. "You care a lot more than you let people see." He smirked, a faint trace of humor in his expression. "And you don't." Her lips twitched into a small smile. "Touché." For a moment, the room was enveloped in a peaceful silence, the kind that didn't require words to convey understanding. Nathan studied Rachel, his gaze thoughtful, his voice soft when he finally spoke. "You know," he began, "you're remarkable under pressure." Rachel arched an eyebrow, her smirk returning. "Was that a compliment, Nathan?" "It was," he admitted, his voice steady and sincere. "You're not just a lawyer, Rachel. You're a fighter." Her gaze lingered on him, the weight of unspoken thoughts passing between them. "So are you, Nathan," she replied, her voice carrying a note of quiet admiration. In that shared moment, amidst the echoes of their shared battles, an unbreakable bond began to solidify, a connection forged not by words, but by the depth of their shared resolve. Meanwhile, Lauren sat quietly in the nursery, her eyes resting on Ethan and Jacob as they napped peacefully in their crib. The soft glow of the evening light filtered through the curtains, casting a warm, tranquil hue over the room. She barely noticed when David appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame, his presence both reassuring and grounding, a steady force amidst the chaos her life had become. "Do you have a minute?" David asked, stepping further inside. Lauren nodded, gesturing for him to sit. He eased into the chair beside her, his gaze fixed on the twins. For a moment he was silent, the weight of unspoken thoughts hanging between them. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice unusually hesitant, "about everything." She remained quiet, sensing the gravity of what he was about to say. "You and the boys," David continued, his tone soft yet deliberate. "You've brought something into my life I didn't even realize was missing. For so long, I've buried myself in work, building walls around myself, convincing myself I didn't need more. But now—" He exhaled, his words trailing off briefly before he met her gaze. Lauren's breath hitched, her heart pounding as she took in the vulnerability etched into his features. "David." "I care about you, Lauren," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "More than I thought I could. I don't just want to keep you safe. I want to be part of your life, a real part. And theirs too." Tears shimmered in Lauren's eyes as she listened, her voice trembling when she finally spoke. "You mean that?" "Every word," David replied, his tone unwavering. "But only if you'll let me." Without hesitation, Lauren reached out, her hand finding his. "David, you've already been part of our lives. You've been our anchor when everything else felt like it was falling apart. I can't imagine doing this without you." Their hands tightened, the unspoken connection between them solidifying into something undeniable. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lauren allowed herself to picture a future of family. It wasn't a fleeting dream anymore, it was something tangible, something she could believe in. And as they sat together in the quiet nursery, hope began to take root. The next morning, sunlight poured through the windows of David's mansion, bathing the once shadowed rooms in a warm, golden light. Lauren stood in the kitchen, cradling Jacob in her arms, while Ethan babbled happily in his high chair. The soft morning sounds filled the space as David entered, placing a light kiss on her temple before reaching for a mug of coffee. Moments later, Nathan and Rachel joined them, their easy banter adding to the calm atmosphere. For the first time in years, Lauren felt a profound sense of peace. Though the scars of her past remained, the heavy weight of it no longer dictated her every moment. She had found her family not only in Nathan, her brother, but also in David, Rachel, and the life they were building together. Later that day, Lauren stood on the wraparound porch of a new home nestled in a quiet, tree-lined town. A mug of tea warmed her hands as she gazed out at Ethan and Jacob, who were playing on a blanket spread across the lush green lawn. Their joyful laughter mingled with the soft chirping of birds and the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by the gentle breeze. David stepped out from the house, carrying a tray with 2 steaming cups of coffee. He set one down on the porch railing beside Lauren and took his place next to her. "Peaceful, isn't it?" he said, his voice calm and steady. Lauren smiled, her gaze resting on the twins, more than I ever thought possible. David nodded, his hand lightly brushing hers as he leaned against the railing. "It's a fresh start, Lauren. For all of us." The decision to move to this serene suburban retreat had been David's idea. He wanted to give Lauren and the twins a chance to rebuild their lives far from the haunting shadows of their past. The house, modest by David's standards, was perfectly suited for a family. With its cozy kitchen, a nursery flooded with sunlight, and a spacious backyard for Ethan and Jacob to grow and explore, it felt like home. Inside, Nathan and Rachel were busy unpacking boxes in the living room. Nathan pulled out a picture frame and stared at the photo a long ago snapshot of him, Lauren, and their parents, taken during simpler, happier times before their family had been torn apart. Rachel glanced up, noticing his pensive expression. "You okay?" she asked softly. Nathan nodded, though his voice was quieter than usual. "Yeah, just thinking about how far we've come." She stepped closer, her tone playful but kind. "You've come a long way, Nathan, from brooding secret agent to family man." He chuckled, setting the frame carefully on a shelf. "And you from relentless lawyer too. Well, slightly less relentless lawyer." Rachel smirked, nudging him lightly. "I prefer multifaceted." Their laughter faded into a companionable silence. Their shared glances lingered just a moment longer each time, the bond between them, forged through chaos and challenge, beginning to grow into something deeper. Yet, they were in no rush, content to let the connection bloom in its own time, savoring the quiet moments together. Later in the day, David found Lauren in the nursery, carefully organizing Ethan and Jacob's ever-growing collection of toys. Jacob babbled cheerfully in his crib, the sound filling the room with a warmth that felt almost tangible. David lingered in the doorway, leaning against the frame as he watched her with a quiet smile. "You've turned this place into a real home," he said, his voice low but filled with admiration. Lauren looked over her shoulder, her expression softening as she met his gaze. "It already feels like home because of you." David stepped into the room, his movements deliberate and steady, his eyes never leaving hers. "Lauren," he began, his tone carrying a weight of sincerity, "I meant what I said before. You and the boys are my family now. I want to be here for you in every way always." Her hand hesitated before reaching out to his, her voice trembling with a mix of vulnerability and gratitude. "You already are, David. I never thought I'd find this again, the feeling of truly belonging. But with you, it feels real. It feels like I can finally breathe." David's hand tightened gently around hers, his touch a silent reassurance. Without a word, he pulled her into an embrace that was neither hurried nor hesitant. It was quiet, profound, and deeply grounding. For a long moment, they stood like that, the chaos of their pasts dissolving into the stillness of the present. The weight they had carried alone seemed to lighten, replaced by the quiet promise of a shared future. As the day waned, the family gathered on the wraparound porch of David's new home. Rachel accepted a glass of iced tea from Nathan as they joined David and Lauren on the wooden swing. Ethan toddled unsteadily across the lush lawn, his laughter ringing out as Jacob clapped his hands in pure delight. Lauren's eyes followed her boys, her heart swelling with a gratitude so profound it almost brought tears. "I never thought this was possible," she said softly, almost to herself, her voice carrying a mix of wonder and disbelief. David turned to her, his expression steady and full of quiet conviction. "You made it possible, Lauren. You never gave up. Not on yourself, not on them." Nathan, sitting casually on the steps, glanced over with a grin. "And we're here because of you, sis, all of us." Rachel raised her glass, her voice warm and resolute. "To new beginnings." The setting sun dipped lower, painting the horizon in breathtaking hues of gold, pink, and lavender. Lauren took a deep breath, letting her gaze sweep across the faces surrounding her. These were the people she had fought to protect, the family she had found amidst the chaos. For the first time in years, a calm peace settled over her. As Ethan and Jacob's giggles echoed in the golden twilight, Lauren leaned her head against David's strong shoulder. She wasn't merely surviving anymore, she was truly living with the people she loved most by her side. The future, once uncertain and fraught with fear, now shimmered with the promise of joy and belonging. This was her home. This was her hope. This was everything she had dreamed of and more. In this heartfelt tale we followed Lauren, a mother determined to protect her twin boys, Ethan and Jacob, from a dark conspiracy that sought to take them away. With the unwavering support of David, a man who stepped up as both protector and partner, her long-lost brother Nathan, and their steadfast ally Rachel, Lauren found the courage to face overwhelming challenges. Their journey wasn't just about uncovering the truth behind a corrupt operation, it was about building trust, rediscovering family, and creating a sanctuary for a new beginning. From moments of despair to triumphant victories, the story reminds us of the strength found in unity and the resilience of the human spirit. It's a testament to how love can rebuild what's been broken and guide us toward a brighter future. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of the story resonated with you the most? Did Lauren's courage inspire you, or did the steadfast loyalty of her newfound family strike a chord? Share your reflections in the comments below. Your voice matters and helps us grow as a community. Don't forget to hit the like button if you found this story meaningful, subscribe to stay connected with more stories like this, and share this video with those who would appreciate its message. Let's create a space where stories of hope and resilience inspire us all. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.